Welcome to another episode of Psychic Diaries. I'm Michael Lamport, the host and the narrator, the producer, and narrator of the psychic show Rescue Mediums. And with me, as always, is Jackie Dennison, who is the host of Rescue Mediums and also the co-owner of the Feathers Academy of Clairvoyant Mediums in Cheshire, England. And we're very happy on this episode to welcome Sherrie Dillard, who is a psychic, but also a medical intuitive. And for those of you that don't know what that is, I guess we'll ask Sherrie to explain it. Hi, welcome, Sherrie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being on. First question, when did you realize that you had a psychic capability?
Well, you know, there's like two phases of that. One is just kind of being aware. And when I was younger, and I had a sister who passed over before I was born, and I was always just very aware of her and aware of other things happening. And it never, because I was so young, I'd never called it psychic. I didn't have any word for it. But it was just kind of a natural thing for me. And then as I got older, I started to realize other people weren't doing this. And I don't know how I came across the understanding that this was psychic, but somehow along the way when I was in school, I began to realize that that's what this was. And frankly, it kind of scared me. It's like, oh, wow, I'm psychic. Wow. Yeah, it really it shook me a little bit because I think it was the way it was presented to me. I forget, I think it was a television show or something. And it seemed like they were presenting it in this kind of like paranormal, creepy kind of way. And I had never thought of it like that. And so at that point, I don't know, it was a little bit of an inner crisis about, well, what is going on with me? But up until then, it was just a very comforting, actually, normal part of my life.
So just before Jackie asks you a question here, can you tell our viewers what is a medical intuitive?
A medical intuitive is someone who can psychically read, tune into the physical body, but also the energy body. And that would include the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of our well-being. And I've noticed there's more and more people working as medical intuitives, and I've noticed that people are kind of finding their own particular kind of strength in it. Some people focus more on the emotional issues that might affect health. Other people focus more on the physical. So I think it's kind of a very loose right now definition because it's kind of particular to the person doing it. But basically it's about tuning into health, well-being. And I would say, it's probably not the word diagnosing as much as it is describing if there is illness or dysfunction, and then helping to assist to some people don't. Some people just give the information. Others are also more connected to the healing part of it. But in any way, it's kind of information that hopefully will help people to improve their health and feel better.
Now, how does the medical community respond to this? Do they understand it? Are they for it? Or are they like, whoa, wait a minute?
Well, it depends. I was very fortunate because I started developing this when I lived for 30 something years right within walking distance of Duke Medical Center, which is a pretty international medical center that does a lot of research and has a lot of kind of a lot of, I wouldn't even say they're all physicians, we'll say different types of medical personnel there that are interested in all different kinds of things. So one of the ways that I first began to even understand what medical intuition was they would have a, I think it was on Thursdays, they'd have a community talk, and doctors, physicians, other types of medical people would come together, and the community could go. So I would go, and they would talk about different things. And one of the things that one of the physicians that headed the group was very interested in medical intuition, very interested in it, and started to do brought a lot of people in, talked about it. So that's how I became aware of it. And because the city I was living in is known for medicine, and it's known for more progressive medicine, people just started coming to me, some of whom were actually doctors, not only just interested in what I was doing, but sometimes really interested in their health. And they were not getting answers in a way that they kind of, well, this is something else. They could tell the physical part of it, but they weren't always sure about, well, why is this happening? So in my personal experience, I've been fortunate because my introduction with the medical community was actually pretty positive. Now, I can't say that's true for probably every hospital, every place, but that was my experience.
I think it's great that the medical community do open their minds to different ways of doing things, because, you know, you can help them. And if they're really closed-minded, I think that's no good for any of us.
Yeah, I had a client a couple years ago who ended up very, very ill. They actually didn't think she was going to make it. She had something, I don't even know how they diagnosed it, what they called it, but they really couldn't find the problem, and she was going downhill. And I had actually given her a medical reading before she had this crisis. And so she reached out to me again, and I described what I was getting and what was happening. And the doctor was just completely not on board with it. I mean, just thought it was nonsense, not on board with it, didn't want to hear it. And then I would say probably a week later or 10 days, it seemed like a long time. She was still in intensive care. Nothing was working. And I guess he just consented because she was asking him to look into what I had been getting, and he did it. And you know, he found that there was definitely validity in what I was describing and what I felt like would help her. And they went ahead and did that. She actually did improve. But if it hadn't been at that crisis stage, I don't think he probably would have, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I know in your book, I've got a copy of your book. I don't know if you can see. I'll just bring it forward. But I'm fascinated with it. So
Yep, there's the book.
There's the book. And
There's
one of the things that I've read in here is about how we hold energy in we can hold energy in a spot, and it be a manifestation of something. I think you talk about a lady who'd got a problem with her foot, and you could see this like raw tissue on a bone here. And then you've got another image then of a very, very tall man, which was her partner, and a feeling as if she was stuck in some way. And she validated that, didn't she? That she was, that's a completely different way of using medical intuition. It's trapped in one area because she was holding on to something. She didn't feel as though she could go forward, backwards, sideways, or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they're like meridian lines, aren't they? You know, when you're working with the meridian lines like that, is that how you would see that?
Well, you know, I have to say I owe a lot of what I know about medical intuition and the way I work. I really owe it to one of my guides, because I really don't have any background in health and I mean, it was one of those areas that if you would have asked me, what kind of work do you want to do as a psychic, that wouldn't have even been on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, it really would not have been on the list. I mean, I was interested about it. Like I said at Duke, I went, but the thought of me doing it with no background actually scared me quite a bit, or it just felt uncomfortable. It just felt like I didn't want to I didn't want to do something that was going to ultimately hurt someone either,
Yeah.
you know?
But your
So,
intent is good, isn't it? The thing is, that's your intent is that you want to help someone. And I think it's great that you've got no medical background in that way, because the things that you are getting then, it's like, oh, hi, where's that come from? You know,
right.
and it's got to be justified in some way. So I think that's brilliant that there isn't a medical background that you can go, okay, well, I already know that.
Well, right. And that's why I think that that's exactly right. As it's, you know, that as a medium, that it's actually easier the less you know. I mean,
Yeah.
the less you know, the easier it is.
Yeah.
I always tell people, please don't tell me. If you tell me something, it's not good for me to know. I'd rather just get it. I'm clear about it. Than knowing information doesn't, it actually is a deterrent really to clarity.
Yeah. Because then you've got it in your head.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, why did you go and say that to me?
Right.
Do you have different guides that you work with?
Yeah, that's what it's going to bring up, is that the medical guide, it's an interesting story because, you know, most of my guides are very soft. I don't know, how would I describe them? Well, let me describe Dr. Roshi, which is my medical guide. The way I met him was I was swimming laps in a pool, which I love doing, which I haven't done for a long time because of COVID, but I was swimming laps back and forth. And I remember I was swimming and I literally felt like I hit a brick wall. I mean, I stopped. It was like something hit me and I stood up like, what was that? Well, then I get this energy of this guy and he says he's Dr. Roshi. And he said something to the effect of, you are so fortunate that I've decided to help you. And he's not the warm, cuddly, soft, let me help you guide. He's more, okay, let's get this thing done. You know, when I call on him to help me with medical readings, he is like this, like, you know, one thing after another. And if I don't get it, I can tell he gets a little like, well, pay attention, you know, like, yeah, he's on it with me, but boy, is he good. And that's how I've gotten to know how to work with people and their health, is because he's very clear, no nonsense, direct, and he'll show me things exactly and then tell me this is what needs to happen. And he's persistent. This is what needs to happen. And he tends to tell me things that I'm really like, I have never heard that before, what you're saying. But I listen now because he tends to always, you know, be right. So I tell people, and I tell you what, I've got quite an education about the physical body through him and what's really going on. But yeah, so when you go back to that question about, or, you know, talking about that woman who, you know, that inability to move forward, and would show up sometimes in our feet too, because that's what moves us forward in the physical, and how energy tends to manifest in the physical body. So yeah, it's meridians, but it's also the way we individually pattern energy too throughout us. It has a lot to do with our own emotional and thought cycles. But yeah, it's kind of, that's,
I think that's very, very true, because a lot of us, like my chiropractor, says that, you know, in my back, I store a lot of bad energy. And, you know, so he sort of gets rid of it. But we do. A lot of people store it in their shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
In their head. And
yeah,
I mean, got to find a way of dispersing that.
Right. That's the key to health, is really allowing moving energy continually flowing and bringing in high vibration energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
And
do you
then
think?
finding,
What do you think about psychic surgery?
you know, the idea of psychic surgery is completely, for me at this point, completely plausible. I mean,
Yeah.
completely accepted. Now, does everyone who say they're doing psychic surgery do it? I don't know. I mean, I
Mm.
can't say that's true. Everyone that says it is, I couldn't, you know, I can't vouch for people in that way, but I do know the idea of it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. 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 And you know, the guide that you work with in that way, medically, the doctor, has he told you anything about when he lived on the earth plane, that what, you know, what his, I'm presuming he was a doctor because he's entitled to, and he knows an awful lot, or has he learned this while he's been in the spirit world, you think?
You know, honestly, it's funny you say that. I'm almost intimidated to ask him in a way. That he's so different of a guide like that. He just seems like
Yeah.
I don't have time. Like, you know, like he must be doing a lot of help somewhere because he absolutely, you know, he's a little arrogant too, because I have asked him, and you know, he's definitely been around. He's been here a few times working with healing medicine, and in his opinion, we've gone backwards and not forward.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh.
that, you know, that there were, you know, it's because he was more from a Asian,
Mm.
you know, he works more with elements and energy flow and things like that. And according to him, you know, if we would have followed more of that. Now, obviously, Western medicine has its pluses when it comes to things like heart disease or broken bones and, you know, things that we definitely need surgery and things like that. And some medicines are very, very important. So it's not completely bad. I mean, I go to doctors. I advise people to go to doctors. But at the same time, the idea of how to heal and the medicine itself, we've kind of separated ourselves from something that is kind of, we're going to have to at some point bring back a little bit more. And like you said, your chiropractor, there are doctors that are doing that some, you know.
Yeah, that's very true, because especially when you think about, like, for example, Chinese medicine, it's been around for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
And when we as Westerners sort of took over the medical thing, you're right, it was all about operations and, okay, well, we'll do this. We'll take your gallbladder out.
Right.
We'll replace your liver, you know, and as opposed to thinking about how else you can do it. That's what I think.
Yeah. And bringing in energy, you know, the idea of energy, the idea of the whole self, our thoughts, our emotions, all of that, and how that can influence health.
Yeah. I had, I would say my very first experience of sort of medical intuition. Now I know that there's a name for it. In fact, it's only this has only happened a couple of times, we were filming an episode of Rescue Mediums. And in between the episodes, the young man in the house has MS, and it was quite progressive. And we were just sat down in interval, and all of a sudden I was just transported somewhere else. And when you said about the doctor, that triggered this memory off for me, because an Asian doctor, I could see him in my mind's eye. He was wearing a white coat, very, very efficient, and he said, I'm going to take you right inside the body. You're going to see exactly what needs doing. And I'm going, okay.
Yeah, you might have had a visit from Dr. Roche.
Well, he was really, he's a little fella, and
he
you
is
know,
a little fellow, right?
And he was like, whoa, and he took me in. I felt as though I was in like a little spacecraft inside this young man's body, and he took me right down the spinal column, and he's saying, now this is stem cells, we're doing stem cell work here. And I was like, oh my god. He said, you have to tell the parents, you have to tell them. okay, I'll tell them. So this probably went on for about, it seemed as if it went on for half an hour, but it was probably only a very short space of time. So I told the boy's father, and he said, actually, we're going to Texas tomorrow, he said, for stem cell treatment. So they were already on the case, you know,
Wow.
there.
Wow.
So yeah, so as soon as you said about him, I thought, oh my God, that sounds like the guy
It
that I
sounds like
met.
maybe, yeah, right. Sounds like him.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
He's
I've not
a pretty
seen
busy
him since.
doctor.
Yeah, yeah. I've never seen him since, and I've only worked that way, you know, when I've gone into the body on another occasion. That was because I had to work in somebody's aura because they've got stuff going on, attachment. So I had to go in to get out, if you see what I mean. But
Oh, right.
yeah, but so who has inspired you along your spiritual pathway, Sherrie?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of people along the way. You know, I think one of the very first, it's not a person so much, but I guess because we were talking about Asian too. I remember when I was young, somehow, I don't know how I got my hands on it, but I got my hands on an I Ching book. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the hexagrams, and I studied that thing. I just loved it. I threw a hexagram. It's like hexagram crazy. But I love that. And that took me to some other more Asian esoteric types of writing. I also, though, really early on, I was drawn to Yogananda, Paramecia Yogananda, who was in California. And I remember being in a used bookstore and coming across a book of Joel Goldsmith's. Are you familiar with him at all?
No.
Yeah, and I just love Joe Goldsmith too. Now, most of the people that I've really followed have been more spiritual based than necessarily on the psychic end of things. My inclination has always been more towards growth, healing, understanding, things like that, as opposed to true psychic. I never on it. The weird thing is I've never had that big of a drive towards psychic work. It wasn't something that really, fascinated me in the way that some of the other more spiritual based things did. I would read a lot of spiritual poetry too, and books about saints and things like that. So I think a lot of it really came from, honestly, my own guides and the way I was led internally more than anything.
Yeah, they tend to do that. You were just mentioning about saints, and I know you've written 11 books, and one of them you've written about the Virgin Mary.
Right.
And you know, I've sort of read the bio to that book. I am going to buy it because she appeared to me earlier this year.
Really?
When I was doing some psychic art work, I was doing a spirit guide portrait for someone, and all of a sudden, boom, it went completely blank, nothing at all. And I had to stand back, I had to put to one side what I was doing. And she stood right in front of me, Mother Mary, there she was. And I had to draw her. And she gave the most amazing message that went with it, which, I then shared, because it wasn't for me to keep, it was for me to share with others. And the day after I finished her portrait, I looked down on the floor, and this is no word of a lie, I found a little emblem on the floor. I thought, what is that? And I looked, and it was her medallion there, her medal there. And it's like, oh my God, because I'm not a religious person. I believe in God, but I'm not a religious person. And so it's like, oh my God. And I'm telling you, the feeling was absolutely, unconditional love was absolutely amazing. And I know you talk about that in that book, because that's what she stands for, isn't it? Unconditional love and healing energy, and how she works with.
And miracles,
And the miracles, yeah.
People that read that book, the 7 levels of power manifestation of Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
Have miracles happen. And I'm not just saying, that really is true. Things happen. That was a book that was completely, every word in that book comes from her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was completely, I didn't grow up Catholic. I have never really been religious either. I would definitely say I'm more spiritual than religious. Like I was saying, I was really more interested in more esoteric and, Asian, other types of work. And, Catholicism never appealed to me in the least, but I tell you, I personally don't really, if you read the book, you'll see, I do write in there a bit that my feeling is Mary has been kind of maligned by the church. I don't think that we really know who Mary is.
I agree.
Think that she was actually the one who manifests miracles, that she's the one I really truly believe. And when I say Mother Mary, I also feel that she's aligned with goddess energy too, with other divine feminine energy. I think it's one manifestation of that.
Yeah.
But that's where my feeling is the real kind of evolution, I guess, we can have towards healing the planet, toward really the change we need in this world is coming more from that energy of divine feminine, of goddess energy, of Mother Mary. So anyway, yeah, I'm pretty strong about that. But it's funny, I would have never, ever thought that it would be Mother Mary that would have been the one that would manifest and be so much a part of my work and my life. And she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she doesn't have to be, like you said, you don't have to be Catholic. You don't have to be Christian.
I almost think, Catholicism, you don't even everywhere. Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, her energy is so incredible. And when I look back now, it was the start of COVID. And so I really believe that she was here to help with the miracles that are to come from this, with the healing, amazing energy. Another amazing, because you are an amazing energy, Sherrie. I started to read I've Never Met a Dead Person that I didn't like. You are a tremendous writer. You really are. I was hooked right in from the beginning with that. It's like, and I'm on this journey with this fascinating lady, and I'm experiencing what she's experiencing. Because this is like a biography, isn't it? Really, this is your spiritual journey.
It really is a memoir. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the title. I just absolutely love the title. How did you come across the title?
Those were the 2 books you mentioned, the Mother Mary book, and that book were actually published, our UK publishing.
Right. Okay, because your books are published by Llewellyn, aren't they?
Well, not those 2 aren't, though.
Oh, okay.
Those 2 are actually John Hunt Publishing from London.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
How did you come across, how did you decide that the title should be I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like?
I don't know. I think I just liked it. I think I just liked the title, Llewellyn, which is the publisher I publish most of my books from. I love them, but I never get to name a book. They always, it's almost like, they're not going to like this if they watch it, but it's almost like if I give them the title I want, I never do that because I know they won't use it.
Right.
And then maybe later I'll kind of, maybe that might be good. And so, but that's not true of John Hunt. John Hunt Publishing, they're like, okay, whatever, what do you want to call it? We'll let you do it. So I thought, okay, I'm doing it. I am doing it.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was a fun title, which really is not really like what the book, the book is about that, but I don't know. It was just a quirky thing that
I like quirky. I like quirky things.
It's a great title. It's very, very, like you said, Sherrie, it's very funny.
Yeah. And I thought, you know, the
you want-
book's not that funny, but what the heck? I'll make the title kind of funny.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, what you talk about is that when we're on the earth plane, you know, we've all got different personalities. You know, but some good people, you get bad people. That's the way of the world. When we go over to spirit, of course, then we have to evolve. We have to. You talk about forgiveness quite a lot with different things, don't you? About that forgiveness that happens, and so it's recognizing our own, what we've done, and how we can then forgive ourselves when we go over to spirit, and we learn. We can continue to learn as we go over. And so the essence of who we are when we're born is not a bad person. So the essence of when we're back in spirit is actually not a bad person if we can learn from the lessons that we've had to learn here on the earth plane. So that to me is a really interesting way of looking at things.
Yeah, which is why you've never met a dead person you didn't like.
Yeah, and tell you what, several people have said to me, well, I have, and I'll tell you, one of this is what makes it true, is that for me anyway, is I have definitely met people that I haven't liked, and for reasons that are, you know, legitimate reasons, I guess I'd say. But, and I think you can say this because you know this as a medium, is that it's a funny thing though, is that there's such a transformation that happens when we go over. Now, you know, you're a medium that unfortunately not all souls go directly to the light. Some want to hang out and stay stuck. So I probably could have prefaced it and said, as long as they've gone to the light.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, that's a little bit too much in the title. But that's kind of what I'm talking about too, is that once we go to the light, then, you know, even the most difficult, stubborn person, whoever that has been, there has been such an incredible transformation. Again, once we've made that journey there, that, yeah, I like it. There hasn't been anybody that I have talked to that I haven't liked.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's because they've gone to the light too, and they've made that transformation, that journey.
Yeah.
Do you think that, Sherrie, do you think that people, okay, this is going to sound weird, people like major murderers have died and gone into the light? Do you think that their mindset or their energy changes in a positive way?
You know, it's funny you asked that, because I actually worked with I used to do more psychic detective work, and I worked on a cold case in my area. The police department called me up because someone had said, oh, you should talk to her. And for some reason, it was 5-6-year-old rape murder case. And they had no, you know, they reached out because they didn't have any other, you know, they thought, what the heck, we can't lose. So anyway, I was working with this detective, and I knew, I could feel the person. I was very aware of the murderer. I saw him. And I remember at some point, boy, it was such a journey I took trying to identify him. But I remember at some point in that case, I really felt like this power of God came through me. And I extended it to him, and I said, you have to reveal yourself. If you want forgiveness, you have to reveal yourself, and you will be forgiven. But you have to do that. And he didn't reveal himself in the way that he went and confessed, but he revealed himself stronger to me, so I could tell the police who he was, where he lived, what he looked like. And I did. Told him exactly where he lived, what he looked like. There were these things about him that were so distinctly him. We drove by, I took him to the place. Well, eventually they got his DNA off of something at work. You know, they followed up and they found out he was a DNA match to this murder. And they also discovered that through going through his stuff, that he committed other murders and he was planning more, that he was somewhat of a serial killer. Well, in jail, he hung himself. He killed himself. And I bring this up because the question is, I remember so clearly watching the news one day and I saw he killed himself. And, you know, I would say at that point, yeah, I would say that there was a certain, I could feel his presence with me. I could feel that he had gone to the light. I could feel that he was forgiven. I knew he did that because of this tremendous amount of guilt he felt. I knew that when I said this incredible rush of energy came through me, and I knew why he did that, because he couldn't live with himself any longer. And yeah, I can't say I loved him for what he did, but I can't say I could feel that in him. That repentance, absolutely.
That's pretty strong.
It was such an amazing life event.
Did that stay with you? Did that feeling stay with you?
Honestly,
like a residual thing?
It's still with me a bit. I mean, it was such a tremendous, incredible, because, you know, I work with the police. They called me, this one detective, probably every day. I worked with them for, I think it took almost a month to find him.
Wow.
I mean, it was a long, intense kind of everyday kind of thing.
Did they credit you with anything at all? No.
But you know what I did? You know what I did, though? At the very beginning of the case, my guides told me, get as much as possible in email. So when he called me, I told him, email me. I'm not going to do this. I said call, but I should have said email. So I had email after email after email where he clearly, it's undeniable that he and I were working on this. There was also a $10,000 reward that would lead to the killer. Of course, I didn't get the reward. I didn't think I knew I would never get that. I didn't do it for that reason. But never.
That's a shame. That's a shame. You know, because Spirit have worked hard, haven't they, with you to help you to solve that in that way. I think that's incredible how you've tuned into his energy rather than the person that was murdered. You tuned into his energy.
Yeah, she, bless her heart. You know, I found that she was young. I found that children and young people who have gone over in those traumatic kinds of ways, most of the time I found there's a lot of protection around them. A lot of healing still taking place. And that's what it was with her. And I don't think that even though it had been a few years, I was directed away from her.
I found that with cold cases, that can be the case, because you can become too emotionally involved. It doesn't help. It's like, you know, when you're doing the reading for someone and you said, like, don't tell me anything because it messes the head up. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Like, don't give me too much information, just enough to know what direction I'm going into. So, do you still work on cold cases now?
No, I used to do volunteer. After that, I got so much publicity. I've got so much, strangely enough, too, I got a lot of anger toward me from people who I never met, who just were saying that because it came out that I had worked with them and I had all the evidence that I had. And it became just too contentious. People were, I don't know, calling me fake and this and that, saying, it just became too much. So then from then I decided to do just missing person, young children missing persons. And I did that for free. I never have gotten paid for any of my police work. And I did no publicity and I never advertised it. And I did that for several years. The only people that knew I did it through some missing persons organizations.
Yeah.
And I had contacts, and they would come to me, so I'd work with them directly. And it was good. I mean, it was successful, I guess, even though, you know, most of the people I found had already passed over. But then I started dwindling on that too. The impact of it, the impact of it was it's a pretty big impact to work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what plans have you got in the pipeline for the future?
Well,
Are you writing another book?
I'm writing a book. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, I want to get your opinion on this, because you've been doing this a long time. There's this idea and thought I've had that our energetic evolution is going faster than our consciousness can keep up with it. And what I mean by that is that I really feel, you know, and I don't know about England and I don't know about Canada, but I know in the US, there are so many people who identify now as empaths and intuitives and highly sensitive.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's almost something that people feel makes it harder for them to live in the world. You know, it makes them, like, absorbing energy from others is a bad thing.
Yeah.
How do I stop this? How do I protect myself? How do I, and there's this kind of separation, I think, that comes up sometimes when we do that and we name things as good and bad, evil, all of that. Yeah. I almost feel it separates us instead of bringing us together. So my idea is that our evolution energetically is speeding up in that way. More and more people are becoming sensitive. But I think our consciousness level, in terms of understanding, not just understanding, but shifting more into, my feeling is that if we have high vibration energy, if we really are clear, then what we mainly attract is high vibration energy. We attract naturally more divine love in the universe and from each other. You know, I think sometimes what we attract is based on absorb is based on our own blocks. Likes attract likes. Now, I know I'm getting into something pretty deep now. So basically, the book I want to write is going to be about how to help people to evolve to meet their their energetic sensitivity.
Oh, I like that. Catching up with your emotion.
Right, exactly. It's almost like, you know, getting people so that they can harness it in a way that's not about, oh my God, I'm absorbing his negative energy or whatever, to more being influencers and being empowered so that we can create change and positivity. You see what I'm saying?
It's channeling and transformation of that channeling energy, isn't it, really?
Right.
That would be fascinating. Yeah, because I do agree that there are so many people that are very empathic, very more spiritually aware now than they were, particularly during the COVID situation, where people have really had to think about where they are in life right now. And so I think we've got a surge of spiritual energy right now, but people don't know how to manifest it. They don't know how to channel it properly. So it's going a bit all over the place. And that can make you feel sort of mentally like, oh my God, I'm losing the plot here. You know, it's how do they make sense out of what it is, to see the positive in what could potentially be a negative situation, because in every negative there's always a positive and vice versa. That's the balance, though, isn't it?
You know, because in the US, there's this unbelievable, I've never experienced anything like this, and it's just unbelievable, the current of hatred and anger in this country right now. And the polarization. And I think it's because, you know, like you're talking, I think you're absolutely right. The sensitivity because of COVID and having to be with ourselves is and I think there is this evolution happening too. It's almost like climate change is happening. Well, there's an energetic shift going along with that we can't stop. And unfortunately, I'm finding the sensitive people, the very compassionate, open empathic, sensitive people are hiding, are feeling an onslaught of the anger and the hatred, are feeling physically even weakened and crippled by it. So that's the kind of thing I'm wanting to work on more. Is it's not just about protection, it's about stepping into a higher vibration too.
Yeah. And I suppose that starts with the inner, because
exactly.
the outer is dependent on the inner. So that's one of the things that I loved about your Develop Your Medical Intuition book, is you work with some fantastic quizzes and exercises in there about recognizing your inner self, recognizing every part of your, not just the physical organs and physical parts of your body, but that the energy and how it flows and what you're hanging on to. So I think that's really, really important work, as to understanding where we are right now and where we're going to, is we've got to start with self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually there is that medical part of it, because again, it's all about energy and what energy we're holding on to.
Yeah.
And we hold on to that anger, we hold on to there's so many wrongs being done right now. People are really suffering.
Yeah.
And we get so stuck in that. And it's not about denial. It's about using the energy in a different way too.
Yeah.
Yes. We have to dissipate that negative energy.
Right.
And embrace more positive energy. Because I agree with you, if we keep negative energy, it just ferments and becomes worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I have had a fascinating time this afternoon talking to you. I'm sure Michael has as well. I mean, I could talk to you all day, Sherrie.
Yeah, well, I loved it. Thank you so much.
I really, really, really could. So if it's okay with you, we'll do this again at some point.
Sure.
Maybe when you've written the next book, and we can talk about that. That would be great. Okay. So thank you very much from me, and thank you from him.
Well, thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Love talking to you both.
Okay, we'll talk to you again soon. I'm going to put all the details for your website on at the end of the video, and then people can see what books you have available. And you do tuition, you do readings, you do many wonderful things. So if they are directed towards your website, they can I like that bit on your website that says meet Sherrie, where you actually meet you. It's so personal. I really like that. I think I need to do something like that. I need to nick that from your website and put it onto mine.
Feel free. And you'll send me a link to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then I'll put it out there too.
Fabulous. All
right. So thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.